Now, before I go into the details of what the detours at the Cooks River Bridge look like, let's just take an overview of the main routes people would be taking that would use this bridge on a normal day. And I've put them up here as three dotted lines. So the first one is you're coming down from up north, from down the Greenway, for instance, from somewhere like the Bay Run. You come down the Greenway on the black line, and you'd go over the bridge, which has been replaced, and continue on down the Cooks River to Mascot, Brighton, Les Sands, the airport, as far south as you want to go. Well, obviously going north the same way. The second one is you come down you got the blue route, again coming down, say even from the Bay Run, coming down the Greenway, and you don't go over the bridge. Instead, you turn right and you continue along the Cooks River. So that one doesn't involve using the bridge, but obviously you have to go around the work site at the moment because where you'd normally go has been blocked off. And the third way is in brown, and that's for people who live out in, say, Strathfield, etc., or Homebush. Well, not people who live out in the cemetery, the dead centre of town, but out that way. And you'd come in on the brown route, and you'd get to the bridge and cross over it and continue on down through Walleye Creek, etc., towards Brighton Les Sands. So that's just, I think when the detour was set up, there needed to be an understanding of where people actually went, how they used the bridge, and the kind of the larger scale routes that they went on. And I think whoever set the detour up just completely did not understand this basic concept of where people are coming from and where they're going. So let's get into the detail and see where it's gone wrong. Now that we've got some context, this is the route that I actually took on Thursday. So you can see I came down from the Bay Run, came down the Greenway, and then I took the detour before I actually got to the work site, because I knew where to go. Now this is actually not marked up really well on the maps that have been provided, and you can see on the Strava GPS thing here that I had to backtrack a few times to have a look at signage, etc. And instead of going down to Botany Bay, which is what I normally would have done taking this, I kind of acted like, well, what if I'd been coming back up from the airport and I wanted to head out towards Strathfield, and therefore I would have gotten onto the detour here and turned left and taken the line, as you can see here. So coming down from the Greenway, the way I came down was actually quite a sensible way to go, and I had really no problems with that. And going back, towards Strathfield, that wasn't too problematic either, in terms of the actual layout of the route. The positioning of the signage, etc., left a hell of a lot to be desired, but these streets that you're taking on are actually quite good. Now, a really fundamental problem with the detour route that's been planned out is the person who planned it really had no idea of how cyclists use the Greenway. And what they've put down in the maps is you're supposed to take the black lines if you're going back up the Greenway to, say, towards the Bay Run. That's actually not the way you use the Greenway. The Greenway is actually two separate routes. There's a downhill route, so that would be those black arrows in reverse, because that long straight road is, it's steep, it's a dead road, and no one in their right mind wants to cycle up it. Instead, the Greenway route takes you where the blue arrows go off to the right. You still got to climb a hill, but the gradients are much less, and it's a much less stressful route. The problem is the people that have laid out the detour have ignored the blue lines and have sent people up the worst possible route. I'm not going to be doing this with the script, I'm just going to be talking through it, so please excuse any ums and ahs and pauses. But here we are bombing down the hill, coming down the Greenway, and what I'd be expecting to see here on the left is a detour sign telling me to go down there rather than continue down to the work site, read the map, and then come back up the hill. Or alternatively, take a kind of odd-shaped detour that really doesn't make sense. So I come around the corner and there is a detour sign there with a hand-marked arrow on it. For some reason the budget didn't stretch to buying arrows, and you can see on the going back the other way there was also one nailed to a tree. Now what I did here is I rode down the hill and around the corner because I was expecting to see some signage that if you're coming up the hill there might be a sign with the detour taking you off to the right. This was just a sanity check on the signage on this route, but no, there was nothing there. So, you know, I don't know if it really makes sense to have any signage down here or not, but, you know, there might be the odd case of people that, you know, are coming this way and want to know where to go, or they might have gone down to the worksite, read the map, and then come back up the hill and go, well, where do I go from here? And you can just see the sign popping out from behind that parked car now. So there's no warning signage, there's just signage around the corner telling you where to go, which is a pretty unusual way of putting up detour signage. I mean, we've all been driving, well, hopefully a lot of people have watched this, been driving for years, and they're used to detour signage. And look, there's a there's a detour sign on a pole that hides behind a tree. And look, I can appreciate not nailing the sign into the tree. You probably get some local greenies that would go absolutely ballistic if they put a nail into a tree like that. But again, not the most sensible place. For instance, you know, you shouldn't put signage up where it can be easily obscured. Now, I did a U-turn here because if you're going back towards the Bay Run, back up the Greenway, to turn left here, as this detour sign on this pole indicates, is actually the wrong way. What you should be doing is taking the blue line. You should be going straight ahead at this road, not turning left. And this is where, you know, I was saying that whoever designed this route did not understand how cyclists use the Greenway. You come down the hill one way and you go back up the hill another way. You know, if they consulted with a local cycling group or Bicycle New South Wales, they might not have made such a, you know, classic blunder. So we've got a sign over there on the left hand side advising us to turn right at this intersection. Again, someone's pulled the Sharpie out. And what I did spot back here was a map nailed up randomly on a power pole in just a weird location in the middle of the street. Didn't quite understand why it was here, why it was up so high where you couldn't read it. And, you know, it had cable hanging in front of it. So not quite sure, you know, how much use that was. Now we're coming down to the main road, and one thing I want you to watch for on this road when we follow it is just to remember, oh look, there's another detour sign over there on the pole, is the Cooks River is a completely, well, it's a shared path that runs through parkland essentially. It's a great place for riding with kids, you know, for old people riding, you see people on mobility scooters, etc. And the detour takes you onto this. Now you can see, I was thinking, should I get on the footpath like that cyclist is on the left? Of course, that's illegal for adults. That's not a shared path, that's a footpath. You'd cop a, I don't know, fine of a couple $100 if the police caught you for doing that. You could ride up there if you had kids under the age of, 15 or 16, but as an adult, I'm forced to ride here. And I had a car up my backside coming through here because, and I've actually had close passes coming through when I've used it in the past. This is not a road I like to ride on. Now, where we should be going is turning left here to go down to Botany Bay. Did you see any signage? No. Remember, here's our maps. You'd come over the bridge and hang left there. Now, what I did spot in this street to the right as I rode past, and I should have stopped and taken a photo, was there was a sign down that street with arrows pointing in both directions, left and right. But you'd only see it if you happened to glance to the right as you went past the street. So again, that was a pretty obscure place to put a sign. So at this roundabout, we've got two ways we can exit it. We can go to the kind of to the left, or we can go kind of to the right. And is there any signage there saying the cycling detour is down this street? No. So if you've got an absolutely crummy map memory like me, or no spatial orientation, or whatever you want to call it, where would you go? I'm sure some people would go up that street. I mean, again, that's just basic detour planning. Every time you come to an intersection, you put up signage indicating where to go, even if it seems to be completely obvious that you know, there is a particular way to go. Next roundabout, exactly the same problem. Now, up to the left, it says it's a no-through road. You know, you'd think it'd be pretty brain dead for people to go up there. Well, don't assume anything. There should be detour signage again down here, because I have no knowledge of this area. You know, I live in Five Dock. I've never ridden on this street before, or this particular part of the street. So I've got no clue where I am. And what was I saying about riding with kids? I mean, these trucks and bus and a sec, they were going past in a big hurry, you know, cutting the corner, etc. Didn't have any close passes, but yeah, a little bit uncomfortable. Would you want to ride down the Cooks River and then get onto this with your family? And I think the answer is no. You want to be on the footpath. Yeah, not a great detour. Okay, here we go, we're hanging right. There's a sign over on the right on that pole, again marked up with a Sharpie, but no warning signage saying, turn in 50 meters or something like that. And we're coming down here, getting back onto the Cooks River Parkland. You can see there's a sign over there on the right. I guess it's generally visible unless someone parks a ute there and blocks it, because I don't know, it's the only sign there is. Now I know this next one's probably going to be a silly thing, but there's no sign here telling you to turn left. I mean, you could turn right. If you don't know the area, that could be a really silly mistake to make, but you could make it. You'd go, well, where's the bridge? I don't know where it is. You could be riding down here at night. You got no idea where to go. Where's the bridge? How do you find it in the dark? And we come up here and look, this is the final stretch where we go over this bridge to the right, but again, there's no detour sign at the bridge. Are we supposed to use this bridge? Are we supposed to use another bridge that's further up? Who knows? So yeah, generally not that great. So how would I improve this? Well, the first thing I'd do is I'd actually use the proper route for the Greenway going back up the hill. Second thing is I would put out more signage in, lots of locations along there that I think I pointed out. And I would make sure I did a ride through on a bike in both directions to make sure it was obvious and clearly visible. And I would get someone to then check the work, get someone like myself who, well, not me, but someone who had no association with the project, didn't know the layout of the land, didn't know where they were supposed to go, and said, right, go find the route of the detour. And if they have trouble following the signage, well, you've got problems with it. And I think I'd also go and buy some directional arrows, and use them instead of Sharpies. And the final thing I'd do is I'd go out to the Parramatta River Valley Cycleway and I'd have a look at the diversion that's been put in place for some works there, and I'd see how these things are done properly.